and the violence has only been escalating. Last night, violent rioters launched commercial-grade fireworks at law enforcement officers who tried to gain control of the situation with tear gas canisters and non-lethal paintball pellets. And the LAPD chief of police says the rioters have now begun using deadly weapons. And President Trump says these riots are not organic, writing on Truth Social, quote, paid insurrectionists. So if that's the case, who's paying them? And are these riots are these riots planned like these in every city, every blue city in America? Well, joining me now to discuss further is senior editor of the Post Millennial and the New York Times, best-selling author of Unmasked, Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy America, Andy Ngo. Andy, welcome to The Pulse. Brother, you've been on the ground there in Los Angeles taking videos of these riots. Before we get into who you believe is organizing and paying for it, tell us what you've seen in the last 48 hours.
So I've been analyzing the footage that other very brave independent journalists have been reporting. I used to go out and do this type of coverage, but some of your viewers may know that Antifa put a target on my back and have tried to kill me several times. So what I'm noticing about the riots, actually I call it an insurrection, what's been happening in the last 72 hours. In the insurrection, it's really the same movie that we saw 5 years ago. We just had the fifth year anniversary of George Floyd's death. It involves many of the same networks, activist groups, militant groups, Antifa, of course, but some of the actors involved are slightly different. Crucially, BLM does not play a role this time so far. There's a number of reasons for that. Black Americans do not support open borders. That's not a policy position or a radical agenda that they generally care about. But within California and other states where there are large Mexican-American communities, there's a fringe within Chicano culture where they don't believe that the United States is legitimate, that the territory belongs to Mexico, and therefore its people should be able to come and go as they please. And that's why we saw in the acts of violence in the last 3 days that the predominant flag that was waved around or used as weapons against law enforcement or tools to bash up vehicles in stores were Mexican flags or flags of other Latin American countries. The goal is to destabilize the United States and to incite an insurrection against the federal government.
Yeah, what doesn't make any sense to me, Andy, is if these individuals, this small faction you say, of Mexican, maybe they're not even Mexican Americans, maybe they are here illegally and they're just underneath the radar, so to speak, or what have you, but they think that America is horrible, they're waving the Mexican, why don't they just go to Mexico? Why do they want to stay in America, riot, destroy property, wave the Mexican flag, just go back to Mexico?
Well, this is the question that many of us have for far-left violent extremists. If you hate this country so much, and according to their actions and their statements and ideology they do, why do you not leave? Well, it's because they like to exploit the freedoms that this country affords and gives them, such as freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. They use those rights and exploit it to plan violence, to engage in acts of violence, and then also to gaslight us. For example, you see all the response from Democrat politicians and left-wing leaders is that the police have been heavy-handed in using tear gas on peaceful protesters. These are peaceful protests. It's the same story we're seeing again. All this, like nothing has changed. Despite all the deaths and violence and riots, is going back to the same blueprint because it had worked so well for them before. And in jurisdictions like LA and other places where we're now starting to see also simmering calls for anti-government action, these leftist rioters and open border militants can comfortably rely on the local prosecutors to not actually prosecute them, which is why for law and order to be restored, it's actually very important that federal authorities handle this matter because the Californians will not.
No, they're not going to do it. Gavin Newsom is still denying. He's still pretty much out there saying it's peaceful protests. You know, it's these people are just, you know, they're burning cars and just trying to live their lives. Who do you think is actually paying for these riots?
So I've seen no evidence that rioters themselves are getting a cash handout. However, these people first and foremost are ideologues. They believe in the cause. And so there have been a number of activist groups that have blasted out emails to these huge listservs. A lot of these nonprofit groups get federal grant money and state money to actually the insurrection is funded by taxpayers, you could argue. You have union leaders and union organizations out there, such as the SEIU. One of the leaders of the California chapter was arrested at one of the riots, for example. There are communist groups, and there's Antifa as well, putting out digital flyers online. So this coalition involves some that have money, some whose channels of money are unknown because they're not transparent. And then also, because there's anarchy and chaos that's happening, you have other criminal elements taking advantage of that, such as last night in Los Angeles, when most of the rioters left because there were still ongoing issues on the streets. Looters then took the opportunity to break into stores and steal merchandise, as they did in 2020. So it's creating the conditions for free-for-all, for all manners of criminals and bad actors to hurt communities and hurt Americans.
It's sad to see, but yet it's a Democrat-ran state. Even Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, she was pretty much denying again that there was any issues inside Los Angeles. Gavin Newsom denied it. Kamala Harris is from Los Angeles. She denied it. My question is, do you think that there are organizations like this, or there's planned organized riots like this for other states, probably specifically blue states?
Yes. So simultaneously, Antifa put out a call for, well, this is still in California, but another city, for a direct action in San Francisco. So there was a mob that showed up at an ICE facility in San Francisco over the weekend, for example. In Portland, a solidarity riot was organized outside the ICE facility in Portland, and police made a number of arrests over the weekend. There are Democrat local elected officials in the state of Rhode Island who are calling for their own insurrections to take place there, modeled after what's happening in Los Angeles. So a lot of the organizing is actually happening in front of us on Blue Sky, on Reddit, on X to a lesser extent.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about the response of the LAPD? Do you think that they're doing enough, have done enough, or did they wait way too long to do really anything?
So the rank and file officers do what they are ordered to do, and the leadership of the LAPD, like every police department, is political. These police chiefs or police commissioners are appointed by the mayor and work in service of the mayor's agenda. So Karen Bass has made it very clear where she stands in her opposition to the federal government. So it's no surprise that on the first day of the riots that DHS officials had to wait hours to get support when rioting was happening in jurisdiction of Los Angeles. You know, the violence wasn't happening on federal property. The rioters were standing on the streets of Los Angeles, and the LAPD took hours to respond. And that was probably a political decision. I think if the violence had been clamped down immediately and with a strong hand, we wouldn't have seen a second, third, and now possibly a fourth ongoing day of violence.
It's pretty sad. Again, I'm a California kid. I was born and raised in California, and it's sad to see the state and cities burning. I hope the constituents of California are waking up and understand that it's leadership that's failed them. Andy, thank you for all your amazing reporting. God bless you, brother. Thank you for joining the Pulse tonight.
My pleasure.